Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. It's monthly wrap-up time again. So I'm going to start things off by looking back on the things that I read during June 2026. Now, I started off the month by finishing off a couple of books, including The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. I'm really glad that I finally got around to reading this one. I've been meaning to read this book for quite a long time. I really enjoyed Dick's writing in this novel. It's not quite top tier PKD. It's not as mind-bending as Ubik or as satisfying as Joanne Joy's Dream of Electric Sheep. But there's something really quite compelling about the way he subtly combines post-war alternate history with Eastern mysticism. It's a unique book. It's special, and I enjoyed it. I also finished off Stations of the Tide by Michael Swanwick, which is quite a strange and surreal book. It's a bit of a hidden gem, even though it did win the Nebula Award back in 91, I think. I certainly hadn't heard of it until recently when Ira suggested it as a buddy read. That's Ira from SF Words of Wonder. I read this book with him and with Brandon and Bart, and we had a discussion. So there is a discussion video up on Ira's channel. Anyway, it's a great read. I've talked about it a bit in my last wrap up, and if you want to find out more, have a look at that discussion video. I will link it in the video description. So, after finishing off those, I read War with the Newts by Karel Čapek, and this is my reading highlight of the month. It's a 1936 satirical SF novel translated from Czech, in which mankind discovers a race of intelligent newts living in the Pacific, and the way that we respond to this discovery and the events that unfold afterwards is basically a biting satire on the international politics of the time. But really, it's a timeless satire. It remains just as relevant today. But this book is more than just a clever satire. It's also, I think, quite a fascinating premise with some interesting ideas, a varied style of narration, and some great humour as well. I really enjoyed it. I will definitely be on the lookout for more by this author, and it's my first 5-star novel that I've read this year, I think. I did make a review, so if you'd like to know more, have a look at that video. It's up on my channel. Then I read The Lava Light World by Philip Jose Farmer. And this is continuing my read-through of the World of Tears series. This is book 5 of 7. And it might possibly be my favourite book in the series so far. It contains some very intriguing and captivating world building. Some pretty crazy world building, actually. It's essentially a survival story set on a world with a constantly shifting and morphing landscape, with inhabited by primitive tribes of humans and some really bizarre man-eating plants. It's a bit longer than the other books so far in the series. It's got a bit of a slower pace, but I actually think that's a bit of a positive because some of the pacing in the previous books is relentless. Anyway, at some point, I will finish this series quite soon. It'll probably be later in the summer, and I will make a World of Tears wrap-up video in which I discuss the whole series. Then I moved on to Rose House by Arkady Martin. This is a modern SF novella, sci-fi mystery thriller. It's essentially a murder mystery set within an AI-controlled house in the desert. I really like the premise, and I think this story started off really promising. A compelling mystery with some interesting characters and some really nice humorous touches. But ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed because the story didn't really feel like it went anywhere, and I don't really feel that the central mystery was adequately resolved. My interest in the story kind of petered out, especially in the second half of the book. So it's a bit disappointing, but not a total disaster. There were a few things I liked. The character dynamics, the humour, and it's only a quick read. If this was a full novel, I might have had different expectations, I guess. Anyway, I also listened to an audiobook. So my audiobook pick for June was Palaces of the Crow by Ray Naylor, which is a new release. It came out in May this year, and this is the third Ray Naylor book that I've read. I think he's a very talented author. This one is a historical fiction novel set, for the most part, in World War II in Eastern Europe. Specifically, it's about a group of adolescents banding together and trying to survive in the Lithuanian forest while the world kind of crumbles around them. And being a wartime novel, there are some pretty dark themes, especially human cruelty and the terrors of war. But the quality of writing is superb. The prose is masterful. It's often poignant. It's often thoughtful. There is a speculative SF element to the story concerning the crows who live in the forest, who are remarkably intelligent and form a close bond with the teenagers and even help them to survive. But that said, it is quite light on the sci-fi elements. So the emphasis is more on the historical fiction. But there is a lot to unpack in this novel. It's very well written and engaging. And so I listened to the audiobook. The narrator is Eunice Wong. She's really good, and I do recommend it. Now, the other book that I've been reading, and I started in June, but I haven't quite finished yet, is Project Pope by Clifford D. Simak. Yeah. So this is my second Simak book this year, and my fifth Simak overall. The last of his books that I read was Time and Again, which was a big disappointment. This one, I'm pleased to say, is a much more enjoyable read. At least so far, I'm about 2/3 of the way through. Basically, we follow a man on the run who is a doctor, and he stows away on a spaceship, and he finds himself destined for a planet called End of Nothing. And this planet is the home to a colony of a religious order of robots called Vatican 17, who have their roots in the Catholic Church on Earth, but now are a totally separate entity. I'm really enjoying it. That's quite a cool premise, right? But there are all kinds of weird and cool ideas in this novel. Just to give you one example, on this colony planet, in this settlement called Vatican 17, there are these humans who the robot priests hire called listeners or sensitives. And they're basically humans with an advanced form of ESP that allows them to discover and explore other worlds and other dimensions telepathically. And the whole purpose of hiring these people is to allow Vatican 17 to expand its knowledge of the cosmos And they call this the Search Program. And it reminds me of this concept which I came across in a Cordwainer Smith story, 3 to a Given Star, of psionic astronomy. I can't remember if that is the term that Cordwainer Smith used or if I just made that up, but it's basically a form of long-distance telepathy, which is used as a means of surveying the galaxy. But in this story, there's a bit of a hoo-ha when one of the women, one of the listeners, is believed to have discovered heaven in this manner. Heaven as in a real place. And that is the impetus to get the plot going, basically. This is just one of several really interesting ideas in this novel. So it's shaping up to be a really compelling read. Now, that about does it for my June reading. So let's take a peek at what's on the cards for July. First up, I obviously need to finish Project Pope. That shouldn't take too long. Another book I'm planning to read is this one, The Stone God Awakens by Philip Jose Farmer. I'm actually going to read this as a buddy read with Deb from Omnivorous Reader. We've been meaning to read something together for a while. We had decided to read a Philip Jose Farmer book. Eventually we settled on this one. It was actually Deb's suggestion originally, this title. I didn't have a copy, but I do now. I got this on World of Books the other day. It's a standalone novel. Early 70s, I think. I don't know much about it. In fact, let's have a peek at the blurb, shall we? Millions of years after man's extinction, one man survives. Ulysses Singing Bear was a scientist back in 1985, but an experiment with matter molecules backfired and he became petrified. Millions of years later, he awakens. But the world has changed drastically, and he finds he is worshipped as a god by people no longer human. Hoping to find a human female with whom to start his race again, he sets out. But there is an obstacle. The tree, Wurutana, the devourer, arch enemy of the stone god's people, the mightiest tree ever known, whose branches touch the heavens and whose roots clasp hell. Ulysses turned god must conquer the tree and the weird race it shelters, move heaven and hell. No easy task, even for a god. Interesting. So I think we're going to read this book at some point later on in July. We'll probably have a video discussion at some point afterward. Another thing which I plan to read soon is this book, The Other Side of the Mountain by Michel Bernanos. Okay, so I picked up this novella quite recently. I can't remember now where I heard about it, but it sounds really intriguing. I believe this is a kind of weird and nightmarish survival tale. It was published in 1967, translated from French. Now, I'm not a big fan of this cover. I don't know what is up with this wall of quotes here. That's way too wordy for a front cover. I really wanted to pick up a vintage copy of the Sphere science fiction paperback, which looks amazing. But alas, I couldn't find any copy online. So this print-on-demand copy will have to do. I am looking forward to it, though. And then we have Red Orc's Rage by Philip Jose Farmer. Yes, yet another Philip Jose Farmer book. This is the next World of Tears book, and it's one of PJF's later works. This was published in 1991. So this one is a little bit different from the other books in the series. So much so that sometimes it's not even considered an actual part of the series. More of a spin-off. Now, Red Orc is an antagonist in book 5, and he's really more of a supporting character than a main character. I'm not sure how much he features in this book, even though he is in the title. It's got a bit of an unusual premise, a bit of a strange structure. Its Wikipedia page describes this book as recursive science fiction. I'm not going to go into detail about this here. I'll save that for a future video. But I am definitely curious to see what Farmer does in this one. So I'm definitely planning to read those books. Something else I'm considering of maybe reading this month, or at least starting, is Zima Blue by Alastair Reynolds. This is a short story collection, and it's been on my to-read list for ages. I really want to explore more of Alastair Reynolds' short fiction and novellas. This one I've heard good things about, and I got him to sign when I interviewed him earlier this year, or last year even. Okay, and finally, I have my monthly Audible subscription. So my audiobook pick for July is How to Live Like a Stoic by Tom Hodgkinson. I've just started listening to this, actually. I'm having a bit of a break from fiction in this case. This is a non-fiction book on the history and the philosophy of Stoicism, which has its roots in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. This is a recent release. It came out in 2026. I have read this author before, but not for a long time. Tom Hodgkinson is the editor of The Idler magazine, and I first discovered him when I was a student in his book, How to Be Free, which was a real eye-opener. I really like his philosophy on life, so this could be interesting. I'll let you know how I get on. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.